The 12 Chairs by Ilf and Petrov. Chapter 7. Traces of the Titanic. Ipolit Madvayevich woke up as usual at 7:30, mumbled "Guten Morgen," and went over to the wash basin. He washed himself with enthusiasm, cleared his throat, noisily rinsed his face, and shook his head to get rid of the water which had run into his ears. He dried himself with satisfaction, but on taking the towel away from his face, Ipolit Madvayevich noticed that it was stained with the same black color that he had used to dye his horizontal mustache 2 days before. Ipolit Matveyevich's heart sank. He rushed to get his pocket mirror. The mirror reflected a large nose and the left-hand side of a mustache as green as the grass in spring. He hurriedly shifted the mirror to the right. The right-hand mustachio was the same revolting color. Bending his head slightly as though trying to butt the mirror, the unhappy man perceived that the jet black still reigned supreme at the center of his square of hair, but that the edges were bordered with the same green color. Ipolit Matveyevich's whole being emitted a groan so loud that Ostop Bender opened his eyes. "You're out of your mind!" exclaimed Bender, and immediately closed his sleepy lids. "Comrade Bender," whispered the victim of the Titanic imploringly. Ostop woke up after a great deal of shaking and persuasion. He looked closely at Ipolit Matveevich and burst into a howl of laughter. Turning away from the founder of the concession, the chief director of operations and technical advisor, rocked with laughter, seized hold of the top of the bed, cried, "Stop, you're killing me!" and again was convulsed with mirth. "That's not nice of you, Comrade Bender," said Ipolit Matveevich, and twitched his green mustache. This gave new strength to the almost exhausted Ostap, and his hearty laughter continued for 10 minutes. Regaining his breath, he suddenly became very serious. "Why are you glaring at me like a soldier at a louse? Take a look at yourself!" "But the chemist told me it would be jet black and wouldn't wash off with either hot water or cold water, soap or paraffin. It was contraband." "Contraband? All contraband is made in Little Arnaut Street in Odessa. Show me the bottle. Look at this. Did you read this?" "Yes." "What about this bit in small print? It clearly states that after washing with hot or cold water, soap or paraffin, the hair should not be rubbed with a towel but dried in the sun or in front of a primus stove. Why didn't you do so? What can you do now with that greenery?" Ipolit Matveevich was very depressed. Tikhon came in and, seeing his master with a green mustache, crossed himself and asked for money to have a drink. "Give this hero of labor a ruble," suggested Ostap. "Only kindly don't charge it to me. It's a personal matter between you and your former colleague. Wait a minute, Dad, don't go away. There's a little matter to discuss." Ostap had a talk with the caretaker about the furniture, and 5 minutes later the concessionaires knew the whole story. The entire furniture had been taken away to the housing division in 1919, with the exception of one drawing room chair that had first been in Tikhon's charge, but was later taken from him by the assistant warden of the second Social Security home. "Is it here in the house, then?" "That's right." "Tell me, old fellow," said Ipolit Matveevich, his heart beating fast, "when you had the chair, did you ever repair it?" "It didn't need repairing. Workmanship was good in those days. The chair could last another 30 years. "Right, off you go, old fellow. Here's another ruble, and don't tell anyone I'm here." "I'll be a tomb, citizen Varabian enough." Sending the caretaker on his way with a cry of "Things are moving," Ostap Bender again turned to Ipolit Matveevich's mustache. "It'll have to be dyed again. Give me some money and I'll go to the chemist's. Your Titanic is no damn good except for dogs. In the old days they really had good dyes. A racing expert once told me an interesting story. Are you interested in horse racing? No? Pity, it's exciting. Well, anyway, there was once a well-known trickster called Count Drutsky. He lost 500,000 rubles on races. King of the losers. So when he had nothing left except debts and was thinking about suicide, a shady character gave him a wonderful piece of advice for 50 rubles. The Count went away and came back a year later with a 3-year-old Orlov trotter. From that moment on, the Count not only made up all his losses, but won 300,000 on top. Broker, that was the name of the horse, had an excellent pedigree and always came in first. He actually beat McMahon in the Derby by a whole length." "Terrific.
But then Korchin, heard of him, noticed that all the horses of the Orlov breed were losing their coats, while Broker, the darling, stayed the same color. There was an unheard of scandal. The Count got 3 years. It turned out that Broker wasn't an Orlov at all, but a crossbreed that had been dyed. Crossbreeds are much more spirited than Orlovs and aren't allowed within yards of them. Which, there's a dye for you. Not quite like your mustache.
But what about the pedigree? You said it was a good one.
Just like the label on your bottle of Titanic. Counterfeit. Give me the money for the dye.
Ostop came back with a new mixture.
It's called Naiad. It may be better than the Titanic. Take your coat off.
The ceremony of re-dyeing began, but the amazing chestnut color making the hair soft and fluffy when mixed with the green of the Titanic unexpectedly turned Ipolit Matveyevich's head and mustache all colors of the rainbow. Vorobianinov, who had not eaten since morning, furiously cursed all the perfumeries, both those state-owned and the illegal ones on Little Arnaut Street in Odessa.
I don't suppose even Aristide Briand had a mustache like that, observed Ostap cheerfully. However, I don't recommend living in Soviet Russia with ultraviolet hair like yours. It'll have to be shaved off.
I can't do that, said Ipolit Matveyevich in a deeply grieved voice. That's impossible.
Why, has it some association or other?
I can't do that, repeated Vorobianinov, lowering his head.
Then you can stay in the caretaker's room for the rest of your life, and I'll go for the chairs. The first one is upstairs, by the way.
All right, shave it then. Bender found a pair of scissors and in a flash snipped off the mustache, which fell silently to the floor. When the hair had been cropped, the technical advisor took a yellow Gillette razor from his pocket and a spare blade from his wallet and began shaving Ipolit Matveyevich, who was almost in tears by this time.
I'm using my last blade on you, so don't forget to credit me with 2 rubles for the shave and haircut.
Why so expensive? Ipolit managed to ask, although he was convulsed with grief. It should only cost 40 kopecks.
For reasons of security, Comrade Field Marshal,
promptly answered Ostap. The sufferings of a man whose head is being shaved with a safety razor are incredible. This became clear to Ipolit Matveyevich from the very beginning of the operation. But all things come to an end.
There, the hearing continues. Those suffering from nerves shouldn't look.
Ipolit Matveyevich shook himself free of the nauseating tufts that until so recently had been distinguished gray hair, washed himself, and, feeling a strong tingling sensation all over his head, looked at himself in the mirror for the 100th time that day. He was unexpectedly pleased by what he saw. Looking at him was the careworn but rather youthful face of an unemployed actor.
Right, forward march, the bugle is sounding, cried Ostap. I'll make tracks for the housing division while you go to the old women.
I can't, said Ipolit Matveyevich. It's too painful for me to enter my own house.
I see, a touching story, the exiled baron. All right, you go to the housing division and I'll get busy here. Our rendezvous will be here in the caretaker's room. Platoon Shun.